Welcome everyone to the virtual Happy Half Hour. We will be getting started in just a minute. And while we're waiting for folks to join the webinar, I would like to remind everyone that this will be recorded and sent out after the session. And if you have any questions throughout the session today, please feel free to send them to us via chat or through the Q&A box. We'll get started in just a few seconds. Today's session is on refilling your 2020 sales pipeline virtually. All right, welcome to the Happy Half Hour for August 21st. Our topic today is refilling your 2020 sales pipeline virtually. And we figured out that we've been doing this for about 5 months. This is session number 15. And so for all of you that have been joining us regularly, we thank you very much. And we welcome anyone that's joining us for the first time. I am Michelle Richardson, the Vice President of Sales Performance Research here at the Brooks Group. And I am joined, as always, by my partner in prospecting today, Russ.
Thanks, Michelle. Great to be with you. It's hard to believe it's been 5 months. You know, when we started this, we knew that COVID was changing the way a lot of people were going to sell. And we weren't sure how long it was, and we weren't sure how deep the economic issues were going to be. But one of the things that we knew was that our new business was going to be affected. And what we're seeing from all the clients we talked to and the research that we've been looking at getting ready for today is that finding new opportunities is one of the biggest challenges that people have. Customers and opportunities that were in the pipeline are slowing down because companies have less money to spend, or at least they're spending it more carefully. It's hard to build trust with new prospects, so finding new people to put into your pipeline are difficult. And we're going to focus today on some of the things we've been learning and some of the things we've seen working as we go to that. And as always, or at least as in the last couple of weeks, our webinar today is sponsored by the Revenue Accelerator from Brooks. Michelle's going to tell you a lot about it, but I'll give you just a hint. It's 3 workshops that have been crafted to be able to focus in on those areas we hear from our customers more than anywhere else that they need help with. And that is, you know, how do I find the right prospects? How do I discover the value that they're looking for and how that matches up with what I do? And then how can I get those closed at higher margins so that I can capitalize on all of the extra value that I bring as a supplier? So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. But for now, Michelle, you've taken a look at some of the current realities that we're dealing with in the field, that our listeners are dealing with. What have you got to share with us?
Absolutely, and you're right, the current realities. Let's take a look, and this really should not be a surprise to just about everybody that's joining us today. Our own research that we conducted during the height of the pandemic, 85% of sales organizations report that they are behind plan. And our own research also indicates that 63% of sales organizations have reported a decrease in lead flow. And Topo, which is a sales and research advisory firm, did their own survey of sales leaders. And moving into Q3, those leaders expected pipeline shortfalls ranging from 20 to 40%. So we're behind plan, the pipeline is down, but all is not lost. There is still hope, and opportunities do exist for vendors that are willing to put in the hard work. So a survey of B2B buyer trends was published in June. This was from Marketing Profs, and they looked at top challenges that buyers were experiencing with vendors. And the top 5 are here on the screen, things like inefficient responses to inquiries, lack of transparency, pricing issues, incomplete or insufficient product information. So things we've actually been talking about before, especially responsiveness and transparency. We've talked about this in previous webinars for those of you that are looking to service your accounts better. All in all, though, only 18% of these buyers indicated no challenges with their current vendors. So what does that mean? That means 82% of business is potentially up for grabs for those sellers that are willing to do the work, to find the time, put in the time to identify these opportunities and really uncover the needs and the opportunities in areas that their solutions could perhaps solve these challenges. But with prospecting, there is pain and there is also payoff. And so to identify these new opportunities, you've got to have prospecting strategies. Well, one of the challenges is that our traditional avenues, in-person vendor meetings are down, trade shows are down. That's really not a surprise for anybody. Obviously, we can't get out face to face. And it takes 18 calls to have one conversation, and only 2% of cold calls generate meetings. So we're looking at all of these ways, things that are making it really tough to connect with our opportunities. And 49% of salespeople don't use technologies to help source leads. And yet those who do were 7% more likely to hit their sales targets last year. So that's from Pipedrive. And I think,
Michelle,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add that some of the things that I've been seeing is that sales VPs are, because deals are slowing down in the pipeline, are asking their sales reps, even in the light of all of these numbers, to find more prospects. In fact, I read a piece the other day, I believe it was out of McKinsey, that they're asking their salespeople to find twice as many leads as they normally would because they're expecting greater fallout as they go through. So not only is it harder, but you're being asked to deliver more.
Right, and that's a great point. And I think there's an untapped opportunity with technology in particular to help source these leads, find these opportunities, and connect in different ways with prospects. And there are things like text messaging and social media. Those mediums are up quite a bit, 85% increase on posts on social media and 70% increase in text messaging from last year. But also other means, things like tools like Owler or Zoom Info, Crunchbase to really help you target new prospects. And then other tools like Outreach that can help you set up workflows to stay in front of prospects and nurture prospects. So some tools that organizations should be aware of to help make their prospecting more efficient.
It's a great point, Michelle. With the need for more calls and more follow-up, it's really hard for, if you just think about the math in terms of trying to reach out to more people, spreading that across less response, and then trying to get more leads, having some kind of a system to be able to follow up on, even if it's just your own homegrown system, something you do in Excel or Outlook's capabilities. You can't just keep everything on paper these days and expect to follow up in the right cadence.
Yeah, great point, exactly. And so we also bring you to our sponsor today, which, as Russ mentioned earlier, is the Revenue Accelerator. So obviously, we're here talking about filling pipelines. Last session, we talked about closing business. So we know this is a priority and an issue for sales organizations. So we have created 3 skill-based workshops that are specifically laser focused on helping you accelerate your revenue and hit your sales goals in a virtual environment. They are 3 sessions, 90 minutes each, and they deal with prospecting, identifying those key issues and challenges to fill your pipeline, and closing deals virtually. So if you would like more information on that, again, please email us at contact@thebrooksgroup.com, and producer Rich is going to put that in the chat box for anybody that's interested in pursuing.
All right. Michelle, we had a question come in about our stats from retail, software, what industries. Most of the data that we look at is across B2B industries. So retail wouldn't really figure into that. That's more of a B2C kind of play. We try to balance it across traditional industries in terms of industrial and manufacturing. There is some technology, there is some medical devices. Clearly, the segment that you play in has different effects on those numbers. But in general, these are the best numbers we can find, the best statistics around business to business selling. So how do we do it? Let's roll up our sleeves and talk about it. Number one, I just want to highlight something Michelle already said, which is it's probably time to think about some kind of technology. And as I talk to people that are out there, the number one thing people tend to come up with is Sales Navigator. Yes, it's going to cost you $80 to $100 and something a month. However, it gives you great ability to be able to tune in by title, by zip code, by industry, by size of certain organizations. It's really a great way to be able to pinpoint exactly who you're looking for. And if you're saving money not being on the road or not buying an airplane ticket, you can put some of that towards Sales Navigator. It's a great tool. Google also is a great tool, and there's a lot of ways in which you can just do basic search and find leads, but Sales Navigator makes it just that much better. I would say, however, if you're trying to use Google, and I am not an expert in this area, but you want to really look at how you do sophisticated searches using things like Boolean logic. If that is all Greek to you, congratulations. I believe Boolean is Greek theory for mathematics. But Google Boolean searches, and you can see how you can add ands and ors and block certain results so that you're really zeroing in on what you want. So anyway, that's a freebie, but technology is going to be used. Number one thing, if you're going to get ready, this is the most successful way to generate leads and the least used, and that is ask for referrals and introductions. Your existing accounts usually know people in your industry that they would be willing to introduce you to if you only asked. Again, statistics say that somewhere over 80% of customers would give a referral, somewhere less than 30% of salespeople ever ask for a referral. And my suggestion with this is I actually would rather ask for an introduction. So do your homework. If I'm sitting and I'm talking to Michelle and I say, Michelle, you know, I'd really like to know Maria Lopez over at this other company. I see you're connected on LinkedIn, or you're in the same group, or do you know her? Would you be willing to do an introduction for me? That way it shows that, that I've done my work, I'm very specific, and I can grow my account base purely by talking to my existing customers. Number two, another often overlooked source of leads is looking at old databases and things that came in from either trade shows or other things that you didn't have, quote unquote, time to follow up on in the past. Their names, their contact information, anything within sort of a year to 18 months based on your particular industry, they're probably still there. They probably have a way to reach them. Particularly old customers, people who have done business with you in the past and have gone away. If you don't know who they are, you can introduce yourself as the new rep or the new territory manager for that particular project. If it is something where there was some fallout, now's a good time to see if they'll have a conversation and talk about mending that relationship. Again, very high ability to have the conversation. There's some level of relationship already, a great way to find new opportunities, particularly with what Michelle shared about how vendors are looking right now. And if you can come in with some of those commitments where you have on-time availability or you've got inventory, it's a chance to reestablish some of those connections. And then the last one is make it a team effort. Many of you probably have heard of hackathons. They're popular in the software business where they lock people away for 48 hours and see what applications they can write. I'm not suggesting you lock your sales team away for 48 hours, but plan a day, whether you're together and separate in the office, or whether you're all working from home, it's going to be your prospecting day. And come up with some different ideas, have some contests, throw prizes at the people who find the most opportunities, but do it as a group. That'll give you both motivation and encouragement to work together. Next, get set. Here's some information also from that Marketing Prof study in terms of why people are looking at other vendors. And you'll see competitive pricing is up there. It doesn't say lowest price, but just competitive. But look at everything else: availability, a better digital experience, pricing models that better meet their needs. Maybe there's a different way to scale. I talked to a customer this week who was sharing with me that they have a structured pricing model, and yet they'll listen to the customer and shape it in the way that they believe it needs to be, whether it's user seats or what they call client seats. So you want to be thinking about how you can be creative there. Coordination between channels. Your channels, if you sell through them, are probably struggling as well. And so this is an opportunity to have conversations with them about going after certain accounts who they know, who they might be able to introduce you to, and then ease in customizing or configuring via self-service experiences. But in general, what we're looking at when we say this is you want to craft an offer to the prospect that has huge value. Because right now, we've talked about this before, you need to be aligned with sort of the critical mission of their organization. The closer you are to revenue stream, the better. And so if you can line up with those things as you begin to craft an offer by segment, then you're going to have a better offer to be able to make when you do get that person connected and together. And maybe you brainstorm that in terms of coming up with that. You can ask yourself the question, what's happening with their customers? For example, right now, if you were selling into the hospitality industry, it's down, hotel stays are down, restaurant stays are down. But what are the things that are going to prompt their customers to want to come back? And can you help them with that? If not, move on to a different segment and think about it. When we talk about this segment value, what you're really looking for is something that's engaging, that is as unique as you can make it, that is timely, and offers real business value. So it's not a time for generic offers of like, hey, let me come tell you what I do. This is a time that says, look, we're able to help people over the last 3 months get this result from this kind of action. And I'd like to come to see if we can do the same thing for your company. I had a CEO tell me today that his focus, or excuse me, yesterday, that his focus is 100% on things that are going to move his bottom line in the next 3 months. And if you can help him move it in the next 3 months, he'll talk to you. If not, go away. He's not interested at all. Number 2 is use a variety of methods. Email has sometimes good success, bad success. We're seeing a lot of success with webinars, with virtual events. So taking something that maybe was a trade show and moving it online and participating in that as one of the sponsors is working. I also heard a very creative idea where someone is calling their customers ahead of the formal meeting and saying, hey, you know what, based on the kind of equipment you have, that might change what we're going to talk about. So would you mind just, sort of walking out now with your camera and shooting me some, or showing me some video of your equipment? Let's just kind of talk through what you've got. And so what he was able to do is basically have a walk through the plant with his contact. He ran across some other folks he hadn't met before, and they're asking him, like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I got such and such on the phone. Gave him a chance to talk a little bit about their role as a supporting vendor. Got to the piece of equipment, got a very good look at what was currently installed, what kind of opportunities they were. But it was a way, once you kind of got through that first phone call, to gather more information virtually that you would normally do through a plant walkthrough or something like that. The other thing that we're seeing here is when you make that huge value offer and you get the connection with the customer, be very clear on what your objective is. Do you want a meeting, whether it's virtual or whether it's in person? Do you want to just kind of make yourself known so that you can talk to them down the way? What we're seeing work in our business and other businesses is an offer to strategize. A lot of companies went through the immediate shutdown, and goal number 1 was, will we survive? Most companies have stabilized at that point, and now they're kind of like, what do we do now? And the best opportunities are those who are trying to figure out what are they going to do from a capacity building perspective, or what are they going to do when everything lifts and this begins to get better. If you're familiar with the theory of constraints and a great book called The Goal, what you learn is that business is all about removing constraint after constraint after constraint. And so you can ask the question, look, if the virus were to disappear tomorrow, we don't expect it would, but if it were, what's going to be the series of issues you're going to face as a business? And how can we have a conversation around those that might get you better prepared, your division, your group, you personally, to tackle those when you go forward? And then finally, the last thing is be creative in terms of what you use. Right now, we're seeing handwritten notes being very effective. If you write something out on a card or on a small note, send it to somebody, they're getting open, they're getting read, because it's just different than other folks are doing. Let's go analog, if you will, as opposed to digital. We're also seeing where strategic gifts work. I was working with a client this morning, and they were talking about the idea of delivering. He was talking about dropping off ice cream. We talked about how can you make that known, and he said that being able to text the key guy with a note that said, "Hey, I just dropped off ice cream, and I remember from our last conversation, yours is sugar-free." Making that connection that makes you stand out in the crowd among all other folks. We had a question come in about large enterprise deals with very long sales cycles. Again, that's kind of industry driven or segment driven, what we're seeing right now. For those who believe that they see enough into the future after COVID that they're going to be able to continue the selling process, you can continue on. But even those we've seen in most industries have slowed down as people have been concerned about capital spending and what's going on. So you still want to make that offer. You still want to strategize. You still want to have, whether it's a whiteboard or a virtual whiteboard session, to think about ideas and about to build capacity. And even this idea of if the virus were to disappear tomorrow, there's going to still be a question of what's my business going to look like. So I may not immediately go back to the spending levels and say, summertime 2021 that I had Christmas of 2019. And then finally, the last one or last kind of idea is once you're set, now you've got to go. And again, we talked about have a clear objective for the meeting, whether it's about just getting a meeting, having a conversation, reconnecting. Make sure you understand what your ask is. It's still very clear that a lot of times too many salespeople settle for a conversation with no clear direction of where they want to go or an ask. And so understand what it is that you want to achieve. Make that your objective and be honest about the fact that you either achieved it or you didn't achieve it. Second of all, be qualifying. Sometimes the people who want to talk to you are the people who aren't going to ever buy from you. And so once you start the conversation, make sure that you're asking the questions to understand kind of where they fit in the organization or what's happening from a role perspective. Are they starting to see a turnaround? Are they not? What's the directives they're getting from their management to understand if they've got the ability to buy, if they start to have a sense of urgency? Yes, you've got to be doing work to build the trust in your company and make them aware of you and your capabilities. But at the same time, you're also trying to understand from your perspective, how high on the priority list does this go? Because not every lead, while every customer needs to be treated fairly, not every prospect is treated the same. And then finally, have a response for when they say no. We're seeing a much higher increase in people when you do get through to them just saying no. And that could mean, you interrupted me, and so my just initial response is no. Some people says that means they're self-qualifying, but you should have a strategy for how you're going to treat that no. And in most cases, what we're seeing being effective is be empathetic. Say, look, I understand you've got a lot going on right now. I understand you can't move forward right now, but look, I don't want to worry about don't worry about wasting my time. What I'd like to do is have a session that I believe you will find valuable and will begin to build capacity for you and your organization when this is over. So figure out when somebody says, no, I don't want to meet, what your next offer or next lines are going to be so you're ready. Don't accept the first no. You're going to have to question it because they may be thinking that either now's not the right time. You can acknowledge that. They don't want to waste your time. You can acknowledge that. The key point is the right offer delivered to the right person is going to deliver value. It'll have more value when they're back buying, but it'll have value now as they're thinking and about working through the process. So ready, set, go. Those are our ideas. By the way, one of the things that we're all looking for is what happens when we get back to selling quote unquote normally or more face-to-face. McKinsey study that was out this last week said that 60% of the surveyed people, again, business to business managers, say we get back to safely selling face-to-face when there's a vaccine. 59% say we get back to it when there is an effective treatment for COVID. But 51% of people are saying that we get back to face-to-face when people start wearing face masks, which means that statistically in a broad audience, half of your customers now are ready to get back to business as normal. And so I think that even though things are crazy in what I'm calling phase B of this case, you're going to see people driven by a desire to kind of stabilize and become more normal in a social distance safe way. So now is a good time to be filling your prospect pool. That's what we've got. If you've got questions, you can chat them to us or come up on the Q&A window. We'd be glad to answer those in terms of what you're seeing or what your particular challenges are with filling that pipeline and prospecting right now.
And while we're waiting for questions to come in, just want to remind everyone that our next webinar will be on September 11th. So we are skipping the week of September 4th. It's Labor Day weekend. So we are going to push that to September 11th.
I had someone talk to me this week about this challenge of filling their pipeline. And the biggest, or one of their big challenges were people were getting discouraged. And so when I said it was a teamwork event where you have set hours for everybody in your organization to kind of be working on leads, that's really important that you help people stay mentally engaged. In general, the time is dragging on us. We're feeling stress. We're not as productive or as efficient as we were. So this is a time for leadership to be encouraging their people, to acknowledging that it's hard, but also recognizing, and I love this phrase, we're going to sell our way out of this mess for where we are as a company. So we think this next normal, virtual selling is here, but buyers are still going to want the same things. The statistics that Michelle shared, the things that I'm looking at, those attributes are not virtual. That's the way how they do business. Make smart use of technology, use referrals, ask for those introductions. The most effective or highest converting leads are referrals. Make it a contest, have fun. Salespeople are competitive. That can't compete right now based on closing business. They can at least compete right now on finding new leads. Maybe you make a contest for the one who reached out to the most people. Offer a very strong value per segment. What's the offer? Why should someone meet with you as opposed to everybody else they're calling with? And if you can't answer that question, then your value or your offer probably isn't strong enough. And then finally, be ready when they say no, because you're going to have to come back with some kind of a comment that is going to encourage them about, yes, I understand it's difficult. I understand you can't move forward. But I believe that if you take a meeting or a visit with us, there's going to be great value that comes out of it. And I'd like the chance to prove that to you. By the way, those kind of meetings where you deliver value, build trust. And as you build trust, you begin to be in a great position to win that opportunity when they begin to spend the money again.
And if you like what you've heard here, be sure to check out our Revenue Accelerator. So we are only able to bring you 30 minutes of actionable content, but the Revenue Accelerator is 3 sessions with 90 minutes that really dig into strategies for accelerating your revenue, filling pipeline, and closing business virtually.
Yep. Our next webinar, September 11th, we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about how to lose a sale virtually, and then parenthetically, and what you can do about it. Because we're seeing some bad habits out there that people are using, and we think by having fun, we might be able to together learn the good habits. So mark your calendars, same time, virtual happy half hour number 16 on September 11th.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing everybody then. Thank you.
Bye-bye.